If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies. Inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Weirding Way Media.
Right, Mr. Walters?
You see that guy over there? Now, he's an actor. The guy on the phone? He's a prize fighter. Me? I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Hello and welcome again to Night Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. I am HP, your co-host, and with me as always is my co-host, Father Malone. Father Malone, how are you?
Like my main man, Jeff, I'm going to have the Eggs Benedict.
This week, we are talking Taxi episode 20, Hollywood Calling. This was written by the Charles Bros, Glenn and Les.
The Chaz is from Henderson. We love the Henderson Chaz boys.
We do.
Sincerely.
We love them almost as much as we love the director, James Burrows, this week, as every week. Reminder, we are doing these shows in broadcast order and not in order of filming. And that's actually important because this episode actually was, I believe, was filmed much earlier than some of the other episodes that we've covered. So it's very important we stick to broadcast order. We open with one of what I think, and I'm sure you took note of this, Father Malone, it's one of my favorite B-rolls yet. It's a wonderful shot of Broadway circa 1979 as a fleet of cabs and other cars make their way down the street. Did you take note of this shot?
Did I take note of the most magnificent B-roll shot of the entire series, effectively of Times Square, just the edge of Times Square? What we're talking about is 49th and Broadway here. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah, I took note of it. I took note of the Embassy 49 cinema, HP. You know, that was originally a Punch and Judy theater back in 1914.
Was it?
And then in 1922, 1932, converted to movie theater. It became the Hopkins, and then it was the Westminster in 34, when it screened only British films. And then in 36, it became the World Theater, and they showed only foreign films. And then after World War II, it was a mix of foreign and second run up until 1972, when it became a porn theater with the premiere of Deep Throat.
Interesting. Did you see what was showing on the marquee?
Slippery When Wet.
I think you're mistaken. The Embassy 49 theater was showing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, you're right.
Which is coincidentally co-starring, of course, Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd and Vincent Schiavelli, who we will see later as a priest from Laka's home country, but we'll get to that when we get to it. What you are thinking of is
the Circus Cinema across the street. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
The Circus Cinema, 1604 Broadway, everybody.
And it was proudly advertising, as you said, the world premiere of Slippery When Wet. I also took note in the background, there was a marquee that said Zoom Zoom. Did you notice that?
Delicious German potato place.
It was German. It was a chain of popular German restaurants. I had no idea of this till I did a little bit of research. So this was like a little mini history lesson right there in the first 5 seconds of the episode. It was fantastic. We fade off from that into the garage. The resident demon, John Burns, strides over to Louise Cage.
Dead man walking here, baby. Dead
He
man
is.
walking.
2 more episodes.
His days are numbered. Yes, I wrote down that Burns, we got a Burns pan opening the episode. HP, I delved a little into the Mr. James Burrows autobiography.
Yes.
And did not learn a lot about Taxi, honestly. But what the one thing that he did kind of take credit for and kind of pat himself on the back for is something that we're constantly praising him about, which is apparently in this kind of multi-camera comedy, having a pan or any kind of intro shot into a scene is frowned upon because it takes time away from dialogue, and there has to be music, so you have to pay for that music. So he insisted that it's just much more theatrical that way to have a scene. So what he started doing is he would have characters talking while the pan is going, and that cuts down the time spent not talking, and they don't have to have music because it's already gone into dialogue. But pans were very important to him. So it was nice to see it here, and as always.
It's a pan following Burns as he walks over to Louise Cage, and he tries talking to Louis and the other cabbies. Apparently he was out for a week taking his forestry finals.
His finals, yeah.
His finals, which we can only assume is forestry.
To everyone who'll listen, he asks, "You remember? You miss me? You know, like I was gone. I was taking my finals. Nobody missed you, John. And you know what? You are taking your finals, baby. You just don't know it yet."
Your final 2 episodes. I took this as a really ominous sign that his eventual departure will be mourned by no one. It starts out like his nightmare, right? We've all had nightmares like this where we walk around and nobody knows us. Nobody cares about us. Everybody seems very unaffected by our very presence. And that's kind of in a weird way. That's how this episode starts. Tony expositions that they're all preoccupied with a group from Hollywood that's making a movie about cab driving, which is an interesting premise for this episode, to say the least.
Meta. Textual, baby. This should have been the final episode of the season, if not the series, where they're making the show about the show, because this is how they made the show, right? There was an article written, and then they had to go research, so they went to a cab company and they did research just like this, and then they went back to Hollywood and made a series out of it.
It is interesting, but I think what we're going to see, not to spoil our discussion here, but what we're going to see from my perspective is that there's a lot more promise to this episode, to the premise of this episode, than we actually will see in the finished product. Clearly, it's a callback to how they made the series. There's this fancy schmancy Hollywood group that's coming to do research for cab drivers. So they're coming to the cab company. That's why apparently that's why all the cab drivers are so disinterested in John Burns. I mean, we know the answer. They're really disinterested because they know he's a dead man walking.
Do they though? I bet they don't. Do you think they knew the writing on the wall? Or do they just think we're finishing the season, we'll see what happens? Like all the characters thought that of themselves.
At least I like to believe that there's some part of these characters that recognizes that Burns is not long for this universe. But anyway, so they're talking about this Hollywood group that's going to come and talk about cab drivers. And Tony wonders if there might be a part in it for Bobby, which is nice enough for him.
Oh.
And this prompts an extremely sarcastic, geez, why didn't I think of that reaction from Bobby, which I took, it seemed overly hurtful to me, but it's perfectly in line with the character's casual cruelty towards Tony. Don't you agree?
100%. He was Wheeler being Wheeler here, you know? I wanted a high five Wheeler for this moment because we haven't seen him as casually cruel of late. He's been a little fuzzier and sensitive. He's been more actorly, and here he is actually in his element. And can you just imagine Bobby Wheeler on the set of anything where he had any little bit of clout? Oh, I hope we get an episode like that.
He would be a nightmare diva without a doubt. Insufferable is the word. Boy, you get on my case for going after Tony at every possible opportunity, but I'll be damned. You go after Bobby at the least provocation too.
But the difference is, I really admire and appreciate everything you think I'm criticizing about. It's not a criticism at all. I'm praising Bobby Wheeler for being Bobby Wheeler.
That's fair enough. I'm just so annoyed by Tony's foibles, and we'll see some of that coming up. So at that point, Alex walks in with his bookings, and weirdly, the first thing he asks Burns about are his finals. Alex seems very blasé about the prospect of these Hollywood types coming into the garage, very almost conspicuously so. And he seems stiffened with annoyance when Tony presses him on the subject of the Hollywood people coming in. And even Burns is perplexed why Alex would take such an interest in his finals, because clearly no one else cares. At this point, we get our first Jeff sighting. Jeff is back, baby. I love it.
Oh my God, he's got a line here. I got so excited. I wrote it down. Jeff has a line, exclamation point.
He announces to the garage that a limo has just pulled up. It must be those Hollywood types that are coming to check out the garage.
Here they come. Hollywood phonies.
All of the cabbies. And this garage is full of background cabbies. There must be 30 of them in this particular shot.
Largely muted, I've got to say. I saw them pouring out to be seen by the Hollywood phonies, and I thought, oh, here we go. And yet it was just the most blasé group of real world looking cabbies of all time. Where was the space woman? Where was Lumberjack Appleman?
There is at least one person that I'm going to quiz you on momentarily. We'll get to him.
Oh.
So all of the cabbies, like I said, en masse, they rush to the door, but Bobby tells them they're acting like a bunch of groupies. He's very annoyed. He wants them to be more casual. Burns asks him, like, what should we do? And Wheeler tells him, act natural. So, of course, they all rush to these predetermined spots. They gather around the card table as if they're playing cards. Everyone rushes to a spot like they're playing some sort of musical chairs or something. And weirdly, everybody freezes in place with what they're doing. I think Bobby is actually mid-yawn, and they just freeze.
It's a tableau.
It is. It's like one of those.
A fresco called Sunshine.
That's it. Enter our big guest star for this week, Martin Mull. It's Colonel Mustard, everybody.
Martin Mull as Hollywood phony Roger Chapman.
We know him as Colonel Mustard from the movie Clue. Also, I loved him in the movie FM. He played Eric Swan, the self-absorbed DJ. He was also Mr. Peach from My Bodyguard, Chris Makepeace's father, who manages the hotel that he lives at. And the list goes on and on.
Fernwood Tonight.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think I was a little young for shows like Fernwood. I know I was, for shows like Fernwood Tonight or Mary Hartman, which he also featured prominently on. So I recognize that that's where he made his name, but it never really made an impact on me. I don't know about you, Father Malone.
I ended up seeing it later and appreciating it. But yeah, I think what was groundbreaking about that show had sort of sailed as far as my cultural appreciation of it. But he's great. I love Martin Mull. Martin Mull, he's so comforting.
He is.
Don't you feel that when he shows up and something, like he's got a weird thing with what's his name? Fred Willard.
Fred Willard, yeah.
Right, but Fred Willard seems like a lunatic, and Martin Mull seems like a down to earth sort of sane person, and but both give off this vibe of comfort that like human beanbag chairs.
One of the other differences is I get the sense from Fred Willard, and this was borne out. If you listen to the commentary for This Is Spinal Tap, you get the sense that they all love Fred Willard, but he can be exhausting. Fred Willard was never not on with a line or a joke or something funny. But with Martin Mull, there's kind of a sensitivity behind all of that. I don't get the sense that he was so nonstop, always had the spotlight on him. There was something behind that, a sensitivity and
a thoughtfulness.
A thoughtfulness and a sensitivity that I always picked up on. And maybe it's because I know him best from roles that kind of tapped into that. FM isn't a great movie, but he's very good in it. My Bodyguard is one of my favorites from that time. And he's very down to earth as Clifford's father.
The 70s kind of embraced the sensitive guy in the form of Alan Alda, but really it should have been Martin Mull.
What is kind of interesting about this particular role is he is supposed to be the stereotypical smarmy Hollywood type.
Exactly. It would be easy to make this caricature of the slimy Hollywood guy, but even in roles where his character is outwardly villainous, like Mr. Mom, he's the antagonist in that. But even under the idea that he's trying to spirit away Terry Garr from Batman, you still get a sense that he's a decent human being somewhere inside.
Through the course of this episode, I don't get the sense that he doesn't care about these characters. I get the sense that he actually is sort of a nice guy, or a down-to-earth individual, even as he's trying to get this movie off the ground and doing what he has to do. But there's something in Martin Mull and the way he plays it. I don't think it's in the writing. I think it's in how he plays it. It kind of twists it a little bit, and I like that about this. It's one of the things I like best about this episode. Roger Chapman comes in and he introduces himself to Louis, saying that he spoke with Louis's boss, Mr. Mackenzie. Now, here's my side note. I wrote this down, background actor alert. Now, you're talking about there's no one there who kind of made an impression on you. This guy made an impression on me. Did you notice as Roger Chapman and Louis are having their initial greeting and discussion, did you look? There's a guy behind them furtively reading the newspaper. And he has this blue T-shirt on that has a sun right in the middle of it and jeans with these extra pockets down the sides of them. The front of his shirt looked almost like something that Captain Marvel would wear, like a superhero.
Right.
There's something about the way he's furtively, like I said, reading the paper.
Yeah, he's supposed to be. He came in with Martin Mull. He's supposed to be like the DP or something.
Do you think so? I thought he was supposed to be a cab driver.
Oh, no. When Martin Mull walks in, he walks in with the girl and two guys. One is the assistant with the permanent hair helmet and his glasses jabbed into it. And he's he's always in sweaters, that guy. I love that guy, by the way. And this guy, the slovenly creative type.
No. There's a woman with them. This woman, Leah.
Yes, I said there was a woman with him. There's the fucking guy with the hair helmet, and then there's this other guy, this slovenly creative type. It's four of them come in.
I must have missed that they walked in together because I just assumed this was just a raggedy cab driver standing in the background.
No, else I would not have said there were no interesting background players earlier.
Fair enough. Chapman has Louis introduce him to the rest of the cabbies, and in typical Louis fashion, he just yells at all the cabbies, just listen up. And as Chapman starts to address the cabbies, he does this weird thing. You know, we always get on Tony's case for him sitting on the cab, spreading himself out like this alpha male.
Tough guy Tony, yeah.
Tough guy Tony. But what Chapman does, and maybe this is part of what endears him to me, he does the anti-Tony where he squats behind the poker table. His chin is mere inches away from the tabletop. So all the cabbies have to look down on him. He's not making eye contact. They're looking down on him because he's so low to the ground. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah, because Martin Mull's smart. He knows how to control that scene.
In a sense, it's a way for this character to take the intimidation away from him being in this garage. He makes himself smaller than everybody else so that they don't feel diminished by this big time Hollywood guy coming in to talk to them. I thought that was kind of cool. But it's weird, though. The way he squats way down is still weird. Chapman stresses to the cabbies that they're looking for real reality, not Hollywood reality. He emphasizes that he wants to blend in as much as possible and not stick out as people making a movie. And he asks them, do you have any questions about this? Of course, Tony the simpleton raises his hand like he's in class, like Horshack in class, like, oh. Did you note what Tony's question was?
How did they part the Red Sea in the Ten Commandments, right? And okay, look, that's a cringeworthy thing for somebody to ask. But is it in 1979? I mean, obviously, Martin Mull's saying, do you have any questions about this thing, right? But how often did a normal person get in contact with anyone from Hollywood, right? At that time, and remember, no internet, and there was barely an Entertainment Tonight on television covering how movies were made and stuff. It's a valid question. I'm siding with Bat on this one.
I think you're giving him way too much credit. And I think this is echoed by the fact that Bobby angrily sneers at him in another display of aggression and casual cruelty. He says to him, "What's wrong with you?" at Tony, which I think echoes everybody's opinion of Tony. But what is wrong with him? Because that's the dumbest question you could ask. In a bid to ingratiate himself to the garage, smartly, by the way, Chapman offers to get the whole garage breakfast. I mean, who's not going to jump at that, right? They're so used to going to Mario's and eating that swill over there.
Well, yeah, we're going to hear a lot about how poor Mario's food is in this penultimate episode of season 1. Like, HP, I've been pulling for Mario's. You've been pulling for Mario's. We've been joking about their breakfast buffet, but we would eat there. And now suddenly Hollywood comes a creeping.
We're going to get a peek behind the curtain of Mario's shortly. Again, he asks the cabbies what they would want for breakfast, and Bobby leads the charge by reluctantly offering, I don't know, coffee. And Tony follows up with, how about donuts? And Chapman replies to them, look, you can have anything you want, anything. He's like Willy Wonka in there. He's like, you can have whatever you want. What do you guys want? Again, Tony, being the simpleton that he is, counters, jelly donuts?
Look, those are fancy. HP, come on.
They're hammering on the simple aspect of Tony a lot already in this episode, I think.
That's because the Charles know that Tony is an idiot.
Someone apparently important named Michael ambles nervously into the garage, and Chapman introduces him as Michael Patrizzi.
Oh my God, it's our Al Pacino proxy.
I wrote that down. I said he's very Pacino-esque. Once again, Tony the simpleton can't help embarrassing Bobby by exclaiming to Patrizzi that, hey, Bobby wants to be an actor too.
Oh my God, look, I was on Banta's side very recently, but this is unforgivable. Imagine, it's like your mom doing it, it's like, but it is somehow worse than your mom doing it because it's out of the mouth of a moron. Like this Pacino clone, had it been Wheeler's mother, he could have gone like, oh, it's his mom. That's really sweet. Like my mom would have done the same thing. But when it's this palooka who's just like, yo, he wants to be an actor. Maybe you can make him an actor. Ay.
Like you said, it's like your mom embarrassing you in front of all your friends. Chapman starts to break down the situation for the cabbies. He says they have a script. It's not a particularly good one. It's got no guts, you see. It's got no soul. And as he's mulling over the situation, Chapman is pacing the length of the garage. But the weird thing is all of these cabbie extras are matching his pace. So what you have, it's almost like something out of a Broadway show where they're all in lockstep pacing back and forth, except for Captain Marvel, who's kind of on his own, out of step with everybody else, which I guess lends credence to your assertion that he's some weird Hollywood creative type that doesn't really know what he's supposed to be doing.
He doesn't care where Martin Mull is right now. He's looking at the fucking garage.
Chapman describes the main character of their script. His name is Joe. And he says Joe he's a good driver. He's been at it for some time. And that's all they have. The rest, he says, is going to have to come from all of the stories the cabbies share with them. And maybe one of their stories, he wonders aloud, is Joe's story. And obviously at this point, this is a little predictable. We know who the ideal Joe character is going to be. This is like I said, this is very predictable. It's going to be our lifer cabbie. It's going to be Alex's story. What? Ironically, Alex, who is a dead set against this whole process. Do you think he'll be won over by Chapman's charms by the end of the episode?
I will be shocked if this plot goes this way.
Almost like clockwork, Bobby then asserts that they should talk to Alex because he's got the best stories. And Chapman asks, well, where is he? And Bobby, now here, this is a great shot. I don't know if I assume you noticed this. I certainly took note of it. As Bobby points him out, we get this great crafted shot where Rieger is sitting grumpily in the foreground while the entire rest of the cast is in the background just above him. It's this wonderfully composed shot, which really sells the notion that Alex is almost self-isolating from the rest of the group because he's sitting by the coffee machine. He wants nothing to do with this. Chapman walks over to Alex and introduces himself and asks if they can talk. And after some patented smarmy yet endearing humor from Martin Mull, there's this funny line where Alex, he's trying to let him off. So he says, "Look, I don't know you, but I think you're a decent man." And then Martin Mull says, "Oh, you don't know me." And the line, it's interesting. I don't know if you noticed the reaction that the audience gave it, because there's this ripple of laughter that continues for longer than you'd think, because it's almost like people, it had the sleeper effect. People heard him say the line, and then after the fact realized how funny it was because he delivers it really well. And I think he even sells it with a little, he says at the end, that's just a little joke. Like, it's so endearing.
Yeah. And it's a warning. That's the wonderful thing. It's really not a joke. He's saying, I'm actually not a good person at all, but he's delivered it in such a charming way. And like you said, it does have that nice rippling out effect in the audience.
It's almost like it's a little disarming for people, the way that Martin Mull is playing this character. It's really a wonder to observe. Alex asks if they can just count him out of this. He doesn't want to be part of this. Bobby is protesting, like, they just want to ask you a few questions. And Alex, his reply is, "Look, I'm a cabbie. If you want to go somewhere else," it's an echo of his speech at the very beginning of the series where he says, "I'm just a cabbie." He says, "If you want to, I'll take you somewhere if you want to go somewhere, but there's a reason why a private life is private." And if Alex says, "If I talk about it, then it won't be private anymore." And he tries to politely walk away. At that point, Chapman calls his assistant over, the one with the hair helmet, and says, "That's our Joe." He knows that Alex would be perfect. His stories would be perfect for this character.
Are you not going to mention Nardo in rust slacks with an open collar shirt and a useless tie?
She's worn that outfit before.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's wonderful, and I'm just throwing it out there. Okay, move on.
On that same subject, we fade out, back in.
No. This is real bad with what we're talking about in this next scene.
We fade in, and Elaine is basically escorting Chapman back into the garage.
Did they have sex? Let's just get to it.
We're getting to that. I've got all kinds of stuff here in my notes.
Thank you. It's like, thank you for a wonderful morning.
Well, we'll get to that. You're jumping ahead here.
We're getting to it right now.
All right.
Did they have sex or not?
It's left up to interpretation.
They had sex. Come on, man. Thank you for a wonderful morning. What were they doing? Having tea?
They had breakfast.
Watching the sunrise?
She says, "Thank you for breakfast."
Breakfast. Mm-hmm.
Let's do this in order. We have to do this in order because it all fits together. Trust me on this. When she walks in, let's talk about, first of all, you were talking about the outfit she was just wearing. This is clearly the next day. She's wearing a red on red blouse and pants combo that makes her look like a fanciful, sexy version of the devil. It's the weirdest outfit I've ever seen her wear. Did you notice that?
Did I notice it? I wrote arg. I wrote that word. And then in all caps, I scrawled, "Nardo in red makes me see red."
You weren't a fan?
I did not like this outfit. On top of which, I'm left with the ambiguity if she just potentially fucked Martin Mull.
She thanks Chapman for breakfast, and he in turn thanks her for sharing her stories with him. What follows is this very tonally odd moment where Chapman says to her, "Anyone ever told you you look like a young Lana Turner?" And he even puts his hand under her chin to hold up her face. And she says, "Well, no." And he replies, "It's because you don't," which is weird.
It's negging.
I think that's exactly what he's doing.
He's Hollywood negging her.
He kind of is.
He's invoking a goddess, right? And saying, "But you're not her, but you are very attractive."
And these are his exact words. "I had a wonderful, wonderful morning."
There you go.
They hold this uncomfortable glance between the two of them, one or two beats too long. They just stand there looking at each other.
Why are you saying it's uncomfortable? They seem comfortable.
It was very disarming, not in a good way. It felt uncomfortable to me.
No, see, I was into that. I'm like, wow, yeah, you go, Nardo. That part I was fine with. The red outfit underneath him. Jesus Christ. Did he buy her that outfit? Maybe that's part of Roger Chapman's thing. He's got a thing for devil girls. You know, he never got over Anne Margaret in the 60s.
What was that movie that they made the remake of? Was it Bedazzled?
Yes.
With, was it Peter Boyle, the original, and Dudley Moore?
Absolutely was. But who was the lady?
I don't remember. I know it was
it Diana
Liz Hurley.
Rigg?
No, it was Liz Hurley in the remake, but I don't remember who it was in the original.
Are they trying to recreate the Anne Margaret from Tommy look on Nardo here?
Look, I didn't have as extreme a response to the outfit as you did, but I did recognize that because it's not one shade of red, it's like a lighter shade and a darker. It just looked odd. It wasn't in line with what she normally wears.
Like a fire truck.
Yeah, kind of. After they have this weird moment together, they walk into the garage. Tony's at the poker table and he's talking about an upcoming prize fight. When's the last time you heard a boxing match described as a prize fight?
That's fine. Come on.
They're really selling the palooka aspect of this.
Well, he is
this
a palooka
character.
and he likes prize fighting. I'd call it prize fighting if I could. I want to pretend I'm James Elroy and, you know, hey, it's the 1940s, everybody.
That's exactly it. It's like something out of a dime store pulp novel. Chapman asks him if he's got tickets, and Tony scoffs that, crazy, I don't have tickets. Not only does Chapman dispatch his assistant, Leah,
Gross.
to get ringside seats, but he arranges for the two of them to go together. I think he says, like, well, you know, Leah is kind of a fight fan. Why don't you take her?
Hey, I'm also a pimp. Did you know that, Tony? Hold on one second. Take her. You'd like that, right?
On paper, that's exactly what he's doing. But again, Martin Mull has this way of being slimy without really being slimy in this. It's really a wonder to behold.
Goddamn Hollywood phonies. This is how they get their way.
Special mention of the come hither eyebrow raise that Leah sends Tony's way. Did you notice that?
Yeah, who can blame her?
She says, I'll arrange it. And she gives whoop, 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 like this little come hither thing.
Uh-huh. They're going to the fights, if you know what I mean.
They're going to go watch the submarine races.
They're going to the
like
squared circle.
So the food arrives at this point, and it's a spectacular spread.
Oh, it looks delicious. Oh, yeah.
We get Jeff's second line of the episode. We know it's fancy because we hear Jeff stipulate, I got the Eggs Benedict, which I think is a fantastic choice.
I want some now.
That's my go-to. So while the rest of the garage ambles over to start stuffing their faces, Burns insists to Chapman that he has a great story. It's awful. That's the punchline to this. I'm not going to bore you with the details.
No, yeah, you don't have to recount it. Burns tells a boring story.
Chapman is clearly not amused, but to his credit, again, we've seen this guy handle the garage with incredible finesse, and he knows exactly how to deal with a child like Burns.
He can handle a rube and his stories.
Almost like talking to a child. He asks if he has any more stories like that, and Burns replies, well, they're not all as good as that. And believe me when I tell you, it's a terrible story. And Chapman cuts him off and says, all right, here's what you should do, John. I want you to write all these stories down all at once. I want you to collect them. And when they're ready, you give them to me, and I will give them the attention they deserve, and quickly too, which we know means they're going to get filed in the circular file, never to be read, which I think is great.
Put that under CS for chicken shit. You know, what happened here at HB is John collected all of those stories, he wrote them all down, and he turned them into the pilot for the Big Bang Theory.
And they lived happily ever after.
And now Burns is a multi-billionaire.
That's enough for Burns, and he leaves happy. I mean, once again, Chapman has worked his charms on this group. I mean, look, these are New York cabbies. They're supposed to be streetwise and tough, but he's got them wrapped around his finger. It's amazing. Chapman goes over to talk to Louis, who's holding a pastry that's seriously as big as his head.
It's a cinnamon loaf. It's like, you know how you go to a pastry place, a bakery, I guess they call those? You can get a tray of cinnamon rolls and you just cut one each. Well, if you didn't cut any of them, and then you put a pound of confectioner sugar on top of it, that's what Louis is holding.
He picks it up, and it's almost as if they caught Danny DeVito in mid-bite, because he mumbles and you hear some scattered laughter in the audience. It's almost as if you're witnessing a blooper that they just kind of go with. He almost has a look on his face like he's going to break and laugh at the whole thing, but they soldier forth. Chapman asks him if the rumors of dispatchers shaking down drivers for money is true. And De Palma simply replies, "What's it worth to you?" Which gives Chapman his answer in typical Louis fashion, and he kind of nods and goes away. Tony yells over to Alex if he wants pigs in a blanket, which we all know is the quintessential child's breakfast. Totally appropriate for Tony to be eating this. Alex curtly replies that he's going to go over to Mario's. And when he asks anyone if they want to come, he gets a lot of mouths half full saying, "You're crazy." Now, I wrote this down. Here's a vaudeville alert. And this is what you were alluding to earlier.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is a Charles Brothers vaudeville special.
Yeah. So one of the cabbies says the food at Mario's is terrible compared to this. And he goes on to say that they use horse meat for hamburgers. Alex replies, "You're crazy." But the cabbie replies, "Take my word for it." Well, we know where this is going.
I'm the cook at Mario's. Okay, here's what saves it, HP.
Yeah.
That actor playing the cook from Mario's is so fucking fascinating looking. I'm sort of mad that they didn't just make him a cabbie.
I recognized him. I didn't know what, but I did recognize him. He's an actor by the name of Rick Colletti. Did you recognize him by any chance?
I did not.
The weird part is the thing I remembered him from. I looked at he's passed away, unfortunately. I think he died about 13 years ago. The thing that I remember him best from is he was in the movie Crocodile Dundee. He was this character named Danny. I think he was one of the New Yorkers that befriends Nick Dundee when he comes to New York. He's wearing like this bike messenger hat.
Mick Dundee.
What did I say?
I think you said Rick.
Oh, Mick Dundee. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's one of the New Yorkers that befriends Nick Dundee. I said it again.
Nick Dundee.
I said Nick. I meant Mick. Mick Dundee. Anyway, he's got a very distinctive face. He seems like he's got a story to tell, but I agree. It's sort of unfortunate that this is all we see of him because he just came off so intriguing to me.
You know what, HP? You know what it reminds me now that this might be the only thing missing from the series, even with Reverend Jim Ignatowski, is they don't have a sinister character. Like they have a pain in the ass character in Louis De Palma, but they don't have anyone who's kind of a threat. There's no Carvelli on tag.
We're talking about Carvelli from Welcome Back, Kotter, which deserves its own podcast. But I remember he had a poem Carvelli did on Welcome Back, Kotter, where he said, "My name is Carvelli. I live in New York. I'm so mean and nasty.
I ate my soup with a fork."
Yeah. With a fork. Yeah, no, he's Charles Fleischer, better known as the voice
Charles
of
Fleischer
Roger
is
Rabbit.
A mad genius, yes.
But anyway, that's our Charles Fleischer appreciation moment. But I agree, there's no character that has an edge to them in that way. Somebody that maybe you're not sure what their motivations are. Maybe they're an antagonist in a way that because Louis has a soft core. We learned this about Louis.
Remember on Cheers, they had John Hill upstairs. He'd come down from the restaurant. Sam, remember that guy? Great villain.
Like Louis is not a nice guy a lot of the time, but he does have a soft, tender side, whereas Carvelli had no softness about him whatsoever. And I'm sure this cook from Mario's maybe, had some qualities like that, but we'll never know because we never see him again. Chapman keeps trying to push Alex to talk to him, but he won't budge. Chapman pesters Alex so much that Alex finally says, "I don't have to take this. We get a union and there are rules."
Oh my God, here we go.
And he loudly asks for the shop steward, but nobody knows who the shop steward is.
This is a useless bit of comedy. This drags the whole episode down.
See, I disagree. This was my favorite part of the episode.
Are they showing Alex the futility of his job here? Is that the point?
Yes, the bureaucracy that goes nowhere. I love the name. So they look up Louis looks up the shop steward.
I just talked myself into liking it. Never mind.
I did. Louis looks up the shop steward and it's somebody named Ben Goretzky.
Ben Goretzky.
That sounds like such a real, genuine name, but it's so funny to me for some reason because they keep yelling.
It's a friend of the writers or something.
Probably, but it sounds like a cabbie name.
So Ben Goretzky has been dead for 2 years, so nobody knows who's going to be the shop steward, so they elect Alex, but he doesn't want to do it, and they can't force him to do it. So what ends up happening is they re-elect Ben Goretzky, and then everything just goes back to normal. So because the futility of life as a cabbie is just too overwhelming, Alex breaks down and says, okay, I'll tell you all my stories, kid.
So it softens Alex up, and he actually smiles after watching this ridiculous display about Ben Goretzky, and he agrees finally to talk to Chapman. We fade out, presumably for commercial. We come back, and this is the next day, and the garage has another amazing meal spread in front of everybody. And one of the cabbies even proclaims, this is the best pate we've had all week. You know that they've been eating high off the hog all week.
That guy is huge, by the way. He's the only extra who actually stood out to me. And that's because he seemed like he was 9 feet tall.
He was towering over everybody else. Tony strolls in, and he's got his new squeeze, Leah, the assistant that he went to the fights with. And they're very cozy. And Alex also strides in. Alex has a little pep in his step.
Cocaine. Supplied by Roger Chapman. That's what you're talking about. We've already seen his proclivity for the uppers. Alex and Roger out all night fucking doing blow, talking about the veracity of Taxi Driver.
He admits that he's told Chapman stories that he hadn't thought of in years. And Elaine asks, they're going to use them. And Alex says, no, that Chapman doesn't think they were right for a movie. He said they were more like television. Vaudeville.
Metatextual, baby. You go, Charles Brothers.
What's interesting is that joke should have gotten a big laugh because it's the meta commentary on Taxi.
Yeah, but nobody knows. They're just people watching they're watching the first season of a show. They've probably never even seen the show air yet.
That's probably a good point. There is some laughter, but it's very muted and very scattered. But Alex does admit to the cabbies that despite all the fuss he made, it's actually been a lot of fun. Louis says, I can see these other yahoos getting taken in by this big Hollywood production, but Louis is surprised that Alex is getting taken in too. Louis is basically salty that they haven't offered him a dime for all of the trouble that he's had with them all week, all the logistical issues and so forth.
He's right to feel that way. He should have already asked for money.
Chapman strolls in and he tells the cabbies they got to go back to Hollywood tomorrow, but he invites them all to his suite at the Plaza for a party.
Ooh, the Plaza.
He calls Louis over to tell him that he spoke with Mr. McKenzie, and McKenzie agreed to let the film crew shoot some scenes in the garage and use all the cabbies as extras. And he even says that Bobby will have a part in the film. And I can see by your face, what's happening is this episode has become kind of an aspirational episode.
Oh my God, that's exactly what I've written here, HP. I wrote, is this the aspirational episode? Because everyone could make it out of the garage simply by being themselves. The Charles Brothers sneak attacked us with an aspirational episode. They got it into the third act. I'm very impressed. I can't be mad at the fact that they've snuck it in here.
It is interesting, but it's so predictable. I mean, we already know. I mean, not even a Taxi fan could see what's going to happen a mile away. Bobby is all excited about his part in the film. He jumps up. He's happy. Now it's all contingent on Louis agreeing to let them shoot in the garage. And at this point, Louis becomes smug Louis. Like he has this look on his face like, I have you exactly where I want you now. And he slides over and makes a big show of the power that he's now lording over the production of the film. Louis says, no, you can't have it. You can't have the garage because of all the disruption that's happening. Chapman correctly plays on Louis's greed. They have an impromptu negotiation down by one of the snack tables. Chapman says that Louis will be a location coordinator and will be paid $15,000. Louis has this look on his face like, and he says, that's not really the figure that I had in mind, but sure, you got a deal. And then Chapman leaves, and Alex comes over and says, what figure did he have in mind, Louis? Do you remember what he said?
It was like $250 or something.
No,
like
no,
that.
it wasn't even.
Some fucking vaudeville line.
It was a gleeful Louis admits he was going to ask for $25 before Louis literally leaps into Alex's.
Oh yeah, okay,
arms.
that's impressive. Like, any of the physical comedy between Rieger and Louis De Palma ends up being a sight to behold.
Everything is looking up for
Oh my
all
God,
the cabbies.
Everyone's getting out of the ghetto.
The only thing that would have made this even worse is at the end of the episode, if in a shock, Louis wakes up and it's all a dream that he had, that all of this stuff was going to happen. Better. Maybe.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, with the mosquitoes and we just can't have the competition. We're going to have to leave you here on the island, everyone in Sunshine County.
The mosquitoes, was that You Need Us? Was that the song?
That's right. You Need Us. What was the honeybees? Was that the...
That was all the women on the island. That was Mrs. Howell.
For those of you under the age of 1,000, we're talking about Gilligan's Island.
That's right. I don't know anyone who's under the age of 50 who's listening to this podcast anyway. So at this point, we cut to the Plaza suite. The party's in full swing. And I got to say, the set decoration worked. It actually, to me, it felt like a big swanky hotel. You can see the skyline and the windows. I thought it worked pretty well. What did you think?
I disagree. I was unimpressed with the hotel.
What didn't you like?
I don't know. It lacked a certain Hollywood pizzazz.
Oh, okay.
It just seemed, you know what? When Elaine had her chafing dish dinner and had all of the weirdos from the art scene over to her place, that place had much more character than this Plaza suite.
I just thought it felt spacious and it felt a little bit gaudy. And that's what I liked about it. And you could see the skyline. It was big.
It was big and it had a skyline. So what?
It had a chandelier.
For those of you under the age of 1,000, I just made a reference to a commercial from the 1970s, but a Time Life book series.
I just told the cab driver I just got back from Vietnam, and he was like, "So what? So what?" That was the Time Life series on Vietnam.
Yes,
and we're having a lot of fun here. Chapman is at the party, and he toasts their future success, and everything's looking up. What could go wrong? Tony's got a new girlfriend. Everybody's getting exactly what they want. And just at that moment, the phone rings and Chapman's assistant announces a call from somebody named Peter Koppelman. Apparently, there was a shakeup at the studio and there's a new head.
What studio?
He makes reference to every studio. I don't know which one. He says Paramount.
Pally, it's Paramount because Paramount is producing Taxi.
Of course.
Yeah, there's a shakeup at Paramount. There's a new studio head. And then that studio had got replaced by this one. So all the studio heads have now been replaced, but the project was set up at Paramount.
During the conversation, when Chapman takes the call, it becomes clear that as often happens when a new head of the studio comes, well, you know better than me because you're privy to these kinds of things, Father Malone, that what's the first thing that the new head of the studio does when they come in?
Clean house, baby. We don't want any of this fucking loser who got fired. We don't want any of his shit lingering around. I don't want to take credit or the blame for any of his failures or successes.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens here. Chapman goes from being very smarmily congratulatory to essentially begging for him not to cancel the taxi project.
HP, I've got a hot take here. New studio heads shouldn't do that. You should appraise every project based on its own merits. I know that's wild talk, but it needs to be said.
I could not agree more because they're doing it for exactly the reasons you cited, which is they don't want to be attached to something they feel is a loser project. They don't want the taint to rub off on them. But honestly, like how many good projects are canceled or shuffled around for no good reason, ones that would have merit and would be successful. It doesn't make
I'll
any
mention
sense.
one. Can I mention one that was part of our childhood? Remember the movie Explorers, the Joe Dante movie?
Of course.
There's an entire third act of that movie that just didn't get filmed because there was a studio like a studio head change. And when they looked at the footage, they were like, well, you can just end it here. And that was it. And they said, you can't film anymore. Like there was a whole passage of that movie where those kids are back on Earth that didn't get filmed. We didn't get the end of that movie.
It does end rather abruptly, but I didn't know that there was this backstory to it. I'll have to watch it again with that understanding. It wasn't even shot. They just didn't film it.
No. There are some scenes that were from that portion that had been filmed prior to it, but evidently there's this entire act that takes place back on Earth amongst the kids again that was supposed to pay off the entire movie.
It's really kind of a vanity move when these heads of the studio come in and, as you say, clean house. We have no way of knowing if this Taxi movie was going to be any good.
No, it was going to be terrible. It was going to be awful.
But that might be the most true to life thing in this whole episode. The fact that this happens so abruptly and kills the project just as it's taking off. One thing I did like about this was that in his sort of begging this head of the studio, Chapman goes as far as putting Alex on the phone to tell him the story of the time he got Patinkined in his cab when the baby was born in the cab.
Oh my God, the Patinkined, yeah.
Which we saw in the Memories of Cab 804 episode, but Alex doesn't get very far.
He should have put Patinkin on the phone. He could have sold it.
Louis then gets on the phone and tries reasoning with Koppelman, but it's no good.
Listen here, Koppelman. You ain't canceling this movie.
It's more desperate than that. But everybody files out like a funeral out of the suite except for Louis and Alex. And Koppelman eventually hangs up on Louis. Alex tries to comfort Louis for his lost 15 grand. And he insists that Louis needs to leave with his head held high. He's got to have more class than that. And Louis reluctantly agrees, but he says, I have to go to the bathroom first. And he goes into the bathroom and he's saying this thing about how,
Speaking of, we all know where this is going.
We know where this is going. Eventually, Louis emerges with an armful of towels and toilet paper that he's going to steal.
The toilet paper was a nice touch, but I was disappointed he wasn't wearing a plaza robe.
Right. That would have been perfect.
A way too big for him robe, like when he was the Penguin.
That would have been more humorous. It would have been a funnier tag to the whole episode.
HP, I didn't mention this earlier, but this episode started with one of the most fantastic B-roll shots of all time. But then here, when we got to the plaza, they gave us this B-roll of some fucking random cab that was definitely not a checkered cab pulling up in front of a hotel, as if that's one of the taxi cabs, taxi cabs pulling up. Shame on them. Don't do that.
But that's it. We don't even get a bumper to this episode. That's the end. They both file out of the hotel, and that's the end of the episode.
Should have been the last episode of the season, I think.
As we do, let's talk yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
As a reminder, we're grading this on a score from 1 to 5 yellow lights. 5 yellow lights is the quintessential perfect Taxi episode, and 1 yellow light means if I never see this again, I won't be upset. So as we do, let's start with you, Father Malone. What do you give Hollywood Calling?
HP, I'm in a quandary about this episode.
Me too.
The number of lights for this episode currently eludes me. I'm going to defer to you. You take the lead on this.
Okay. I was really prepared to give this 2 yellow lights, but I'm not going to give it 2 yellow lights. We have to be better than this, Father Malone. I'm giving this episode 1 yellow light. And I'll tell you why. It was an unrealistic plot in which the cabbies themselves have almost nothing to do. In my estimation, watching this back, the cabbies are literally bit players in their own show. They don't do anything. All they're doing is reacting to the machinations of Roger Chapman. To see them reduced to bit players in their own show, that's really, once I had that epiphany, that's what sealed the deal for me. Now, there are some redeeming features to this episode. DeVito has some funny moments. And as I said before, the union bit with Ben Goretzky was really good. But honestly, the episode itself was pretty much as inessential as they come. And it's a real missed opportunity to make a solid sort of meta commentary on the actual show's genesis, especially in light of the fact that there was a lot of criticism levied at this show at the time from actual cab drivers who thought it was too sanitized, that it wasn't gritty enough. So for those reasons, I'm giving this episode 1 yellow light.
Okay. I agree with everything you just said. None of the characters have any agency in the episode. They're just ping-ponging based on these outside forces that have invaded the cab company, right? But to me, that's every aspirational episode. So I don't really see that as too much of a drawback, except we just get it en masse here. The only non-casualty of this Hollywood intervention is Latka. I agree with that. Geez, one yellow light, man. See, I was waffling between 2 and 3, and now I can't possibly. Well, I'm not going to give it a 3. I'm not going to give it a 3 because it's not worth that, because it does indulge in some of the more distasteful mannerisms of the Charles brothers writing. The setting that joke up and knocking it down, you know. I'm gonna go 2. I'm gonna say 2 yellow lights on this one. Jeez, what were your other criticisms? That
The big thing was what you just reiterated, which is the cabbies have nothing. They're basically bit players in their own show.
But again, that's every aspirational episode.
I disagree with that general point, but it felt more acute in this case because it's not just aspirational for one cabbie, it's aspirational across the entire garage. I can't fault you for giving it 2 yellow lights because, like I said, that was what I was leaning towards. But the more I think about it, the more I couldn't in good conscience give it 2 because that means it's just slightly below average. And I think it's worse than that.
Well, look, I couldn't possibly give this one 1. I'll definitely give it 2. I'm tempted to give it 3 just because when Nardo returns, she does it in browns and blues, and it was like a cooling balm. But yeah, I don't know if that's enough to justify a 3rd yellow light. It would have had to have been a really fantastic outfit and not just a interesting outfit. I like the cook from Mario's. I'm sorry we're not going to see him again. He maybe deserves... we don't do half lights. Okay, it's 2 yellow lights, HP.
The only thing that I waffle on is other 1 yellow lights. I think one of the Burns episodes, I think we both agreed was 1 yellow light.
You know what? You're out of your fucking mind, by the way.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not but here's my reasoning here's why I'm still a little bit uncomfortable even giving it that is because a 1 yellow light typically means that if it comes on TV, I won't even watch it. It's so distasteful.
You would watch this episode.
I wouldn't love it, but I would leave it on in the background like the fish tank. But I'm sticking with.
Let me ask you this: is Martin Mull, his presence alone, is that not worth 1 yellow light? Martin Mull, who can turn an "yes, I really am a scumbag" line into a "aw, what a sweetie."
That's the best point you've made so far. Maybe I didn't take that into proper account. I'm still going to stick with the 1. I feel bad because...
Excuse me. I'm amending mine. I'm now going to 3 yellow lights. 3 yellow lights, everyone. Martin Mull. I've talked myself into Martin Mull meriting his own yellow light. He's fucking great here. He would have fit in here.
At the end of the day, this is not the Martin Mull show. This is Taxi. And I want to see my favorite cabbies doing what they do. It was just lacking in that department. So I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with pretty much everything you're saying. I can't in good conscience go back and say this is a 2 or 3 yellow.
Okay,
this is 1.
Look, I don't want to die on this hill or anything, but I'm going to. Here we go. Talking about the agency episode. This isn't even an aspiration episode. We're going to talk about Angela. Okay. Who has agency in the Angela episode?
Alex does, of course.
No, he doesn't.
No. Look, this isn't.
It's all reaction. It's all reaction to Angela, right?
No.
And
no, it's not.
And that is a terrible character, and the actress is annoying. And that episode, do you give it 1 yellow light?
No, I gave it 3 yellow lights. I gave it 3. Because Alex is decent. Alex has agency. He could have walked away at any time, and he doesn't. He chooses to go back to Angela's apartment and hash things out. So no,
look, the agency here was, are we going to be seduced by this Hollywood phony? And they all failed.
I'm going to use your words against you, my friend.
Uh-oh.
Your word. I refute everything you've just said about Angela. But this is not about Angela. This is about Hollywood Calling. I'm sticking with 1 yellow light.
All right.
3 is fair. I just didn't feel it in my gut that it deserved it.
Very well.
That will do it for this episode of Night Mr. Walters. Father Malone, when you are not clocked into the garage, where can the fine folks find you?
Check me out over at weirdingwaymedia.com. You can hear my podcast, Dark Destinations. It's a radio drama that I write and produce. Or you can hear me on Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast, where we take a look at horror anthology television series. We are wrapping up Night Gallery, and in just a few weeks, we're going to begin tackling Tales from the Dark Side.
As for myself, you can find me in many of the same corners of the internet. I'm also on the Weirding Way network, and you can also hear me on Noise Junkies, which is a music podcast that Father Malone and myself do with Mondo Heather's Heather Drain. And you can also hear some of my limited acting and some of my music on the Dark Destinations podcast that Father Malone mentioned. I would encourage anyone who loves good storytelling, good audio drama, to check that out. Also, I have a Bandcamp site for some of my musical nonsense. It's hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com. Please check that out if you're so inclined.
Oh, hey, I've got a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Father Malone. Give me money.
Absolutely. Give him money and lots of it. If you like what you hear, please feel free to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, rate us. We would love to hear from you in any manner you choose. So for Night Mr. Walters, myself, and Father Malone, thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Night, Mr. Walters.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.